This is Danny with QuadLugs, and today we're going to give a helping hand on a build. We're going to go through it as best I can and see what's wrong. So we're going to pull the top of this off. Here's the ESC, and we'll disconnect this. And let's just go through and show you how I normally do it. This is going to be, we're using a KK board, so the motor order is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the front of the quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course the arms are folded in right now. So motor number 1 is going to ESC, let's see here, 1. So we're going to I'm just going to write down right here ESC and motor and list them here. And this is how we're going to connect this, or this will give us the order to connect this to the flight controller. Motor number 1 is going to ESC 1, wrote it down. Motor number 2 is going to ESC 3. Motor number 3 is going to ESC 4. Motor number 4 is going to ESC number 2. Okay, this is a connector, and this is where it's going to go here to the ESC. Black wire is your ground wire. The red wire is your power wire. The first white wire is going to be ESC 1. The second white wire, the wire next to it, is going to be ESC 2. The third white wire is going to be ESC 3, and the fourth is ESC 4. This red wire here all by itself on the end is a VBAT wire. We're going to take it out. We won't need it, but we'll save this just in case we need it later on. And all you do is lift up on the tab here and it'll pull right out. We'll do that in a second. Okay, let's go ahead and remove this. We'll lift up on this tab. And we just gently pull the wire out. Okay, that's done. So this will give us the order to wire in the controller on this side. Let's go ahead and plug this in. Just make sure you don't press or don't apply too much pressure on this connector. You may have to turn it over and put it back, to put it in. But this is how it's going to go. The black, red, and the white, how you see it here, is just how you put it back in, or put it in. Okay. Now we're ready to tie this in. I've already checked the wiring, and where it was connected to the plug, it's correct. We want to make sure the polarity is right, that the ground and the power, or the black and the red, are not reversed. This is correct. I've already applied power to it, and I'll show you what it does. Everything is good there. And there we go. Now we're ready to put the top on and wire this in. This is a controller. He thought he had ruined the controller, but it seemed to be okay. I applied power to it and went through the menu, and everything looked good on it. So we're going to reinstall this and see if it works. But everything seems to be okay with it. So this fits in here like this, and we'll permanently install this in a while. Right now we're just going to, reassemble it partially just to wire it up and try it. What I found on the receiver is that this is backwards. Actually, the ground is on top. It should be on the bottom. And you can look right here and it shows S, which is the signal, plus in the middle, or power, and the negative sign, which is the ground, on this side. So if you take this and you turn it sideways, that's just how it should be hooked up. The black or the ground is in the wrong area or hooked up wrong. So all we have to do is just turn this over, plug it back in, and there you go. That's the signal on top, the power in the middle, and your ground at the bottom. And the way this is wired in, and he did a good job of it, the red is the, or this particular one, the red is going to be your elevator. This is going to be your aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder. And he's using one to tie in on the signal to the controller. But if you notice, we have aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder, and they're not lined up here. So red would have to go on one end, which would be your elevator, and here it's going in the middle. So I'm sorry, yes, so it's going in the middle. So actually, instead of red here, red here is your aileron, but the way it would hook up here would be hooking up your throttle instead. So let's just do this. This is a real easy fix. Let's take these out, and we're just going to take them all out and put them back in. And instead of, running 3 separate cables, he's using one, which is very smart to do. But they have to be in order. So if we look on the bottom of the controller, and here's a KK2 board. If you see here, it's aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder. So the first one's aileron, and it's also going to feed the power and the ground aileron. So we're going to install this, and if you look right here on top, negative, positive, signal. So this needs to go just like this, and this is going to be the aileron. Hang on one second. Okay. We'll double check that. Looks good. And this is aileron. So let's get these lined up. The red, which is going to be the elevator on channel 2, let's put this on one end. Okay. Channel number 3, which is the white, is going to be your throttle, and it needs to be in the middle. So you just want to make sure they're in order of how you wired it in. Okay. Black is going to be your rudder, and the rudder is going to have to go on the other end. So let's hook this up. I'm not working in my normal area, and it's a little dark right here actually. I've lightened up the camera on the contrast, so It'll show up good on video. But, so now when we hook this up, we're going to tie it in just to the signal, which is the S here on the inside. And we want the red to be at the top. So if you remember, it's going to be aileron, throttle, rudder. So it's a neat way of wiring it. You don't have, 5 wires on there or 4 wires. So it's really nice doing it this way. Just make sure that they're in order. Okay, and that's that. So that's what that's going to look like. Like that. Okay, so we're done here on the receiver side. We're going to trim up these wires in a minute. A little wire management, as I call it. Let's go ahead and do these one at a time since there are 2 different plates on here. So this is going to be motor number 1. And if we look at this, motor 1, 2, 3, 4 on to 8. And again, here is the signals on the outside, the power's in the center, and the ground. I'm sorry, the ground is on the outside, the power's in the middle, and the signal's on the inside. Okay, so the white wire is going to go to the inside. This is going to be motor number 1. So remember we said motor number 1 went to ESC number 1, and that's where we're hooking it. So the next one, and this is kind of tight because this has this other piece on top. And let's just do it this way. Let's take this off. We'll plug it back in. It'll be a lot easier. So motor number 2 is going to ESC3. So let's go to the 3rd white wire from, as we went over earlier, this is the 3rd white wire. This is ESC3. And it's going to hook up to motor number 2 here. Now motor number 3 is going to be hooked up to ESC4. So let's go here to ESC4. And we're going to tie it into or connect it to motor number 3. Motor number 4 is going to ESC2. So this should be, there it is, a 2nd white wire here. And we're going to connect that to motor number 4. Pretty simple if you write it down and just take one step at a time. Okay. Now, this is our connector here, and this is a real tight fit. Yeah, I think we make it work. Okay, and there it is. It's connected to the ESC. Okay. This is we'll screw this back down later, and after we have that screwed down, we'll put some double-sided tape in here to hold the controller in. But for right now, that's ought to be good. We ought to be connected to everything. Now what we need to do is make sure this is bound, the receiver, and we're using the Turnigy i6. So you need to put your binding plug, and it goes in this very last one. It says B, bind. And when you put it in, well, let's just do it now. Let's put the binding plug in. And we have videos out on this. and they're all over the net. This is a very popular transmitter. So we'll put the binding plug in, and let's plug this in, and you'll see that the receiver's blinking real fast. And we'll hold the bind plug down. We've already set up our model, and we'll go through this after a while, but you would want to have done this already. And so with this set up, you just hold the bind plug down, or the bind switch down, and turn the power on. And you'll see the light is now steady. And it shows here FX, it actually showed that it's receiving. Okay, so let's take out the bind plug, and we'll turn the transmitter off. We're just going to cycle it. We're going to unplug it, and we'll go ahead and plug it back in. Or better yet, let's do it the proper way. Turn the transmitter on, plug in the battery, and you see that it's bound. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is go through the programming. Okay, let's go ahead and program the controller. This is a KK2 board again. So we plugged in the quad with the battery, and we'll turn our transmitter on, and let's get going here. It says menu on this side. You have 4 buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4. The one on the far right is under menu, so let's press that and we'll get started. So let's go down to receiver test and press enter. Aileron, on our transmitter, let's put our aileron to the left. And it says left. We'll go to the right, it says right. Good to go. Elevator, let's pull it back, and it says forward. So that needs to be reversed. So let's go into our transmitter, and we'll go into reversing mode, and we'll go to channel. We'll go to channel 2, and we'll reverse it. And let's go to our throttle, and let's just double check this. Hang on 1 second. So reverse channel number 2, elevator left, aileron left, and our elevator we're going to pull back. Now that's correct. It says back, let's push forward, it says forward. Throttle, it says idle, and we have it all the way down, our throttle all the way down on the transmitter. Let's go all the way up, it says full, that's correct. Rudder, let's move our rudder to the left, and it says right. So let's go ahead and reverse that one. And that will be channel number 4. And we reversed it. Now we'll move our rudder to the left, and indeed it's left. So let's go through it again. Aileron left, that's correct. Elevator, pull it back, it says back, we're correct. Throttle idle, full, correct. Rudder, we'll move it to the left on the transmitter, and it says left. So we're good to go there. So let's back out of there, far left hand button, and we'll continue. Let's go down. Sliders, Really don't need to do anything there. It's just verifying. Mode settings, and we'll go into enter. Now this is for self level. If you leave it in auxiliary where it's at now, you can actually set up a switch to put it, into self level, make it a little bit easier to fly. Or you can take it out and you can do all kind of tricks with it and stuff. But on this particular one here, I think he wants to put a camera gimbal on the front, and it's a servo gimbal. And to do that, this transmitter only has 6 channels. So we're using 4 now. And if he wants to put the camera gimbal on, we're going to use 2 more channels. So we have no switches or no channels free to, switch into auxiliary or not. So we're going to leave it into self level all the time to free up the other 2 channels for his camera gimbal. So let's hit change, and it says stick. Oh, let me go back. It says stick, and it says always, and we're going to leave it in always. That means it's going to be in self-leveling all the time, which if you're going to use it for a camera, it makes it real easy. You can always go back and change this and set up a switch for it. So we're going to leave it in always. Let's back out of there and let's just go back in and double check. Yep, it's still in always. That noise you're hearing is my transmitter saying that is idle too long, so I just move a switch in there and it lets it go on. Stick scaling we don't have to worry about. That's just no problem there. We're going to leave all of that on our default settings. So the next thing we're going to do, sensor test. Let's hit enter, and it's just testing the sensors in it, and it says they're all okay. We're in good shape. Let's back it up. We'll continue going. And ACC calibration, this is going to calibrate what's level, and let's go ahead and do that. And make sure your quad, this is pushed down in there, so the controller, so it's right where you're going to be flying it at, the position you're going to be flying it at. And also the quad is set level, so I have it on my table. It's nice and level, so I'm ready to go ahead and do the calibration. Let's hit enter. It says continue, and it's doing it now. It says calibrating, it says okay, continue, succeeded, continue, we're ready to go. The receiver channel mapping, we'll go into there, but it's already set. Roll or ailerons 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We're in good shape there. Let's back out. Mixer we're not going to mess with. Show motor layout, but what we want to do here, the next one is load motor layout. And here we're going to pick what kind of quad we're in. So we're not there, not there. Let's go down. It's quadrocopter plus mode, and we're not doing that. This is quadrocopter X mode, and that's what we're using. Let's press enter. Are you sure? Yes. And here it gives you the directions and the motor numbers. This is motor number 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like we wired it in. And it gives you the rotation of each one. 1 is clockwise, 2 is counter, motor number 3 is clock, and motor number 4 is counter. We'll double check, or when we put the props on, we'll make sure we have the right prop in the right place. But that tells you here, how to install your props, which direction it's going to be, and also testing your motors, make sure they're in that direction also. And we'll hit next, and it'll actually spell out each one. There you go. And we'll hit back, and we'll hit back, and then if you go up 1, it just shows again, and hit enter. It shows again the motor layout. So you can go there at any particular time and just see what this controller's set on. Let's move on. We don't need anything there. This is kind of cool. Shows a bubble there, and it shows, see, it's going to show out a level. There. I don't really use it, but it's kind of cool. And I think this is all we need to do. So let's go ahead and go back. And here now it says self level is on. You remember before it said off. So this is on all the time, just like we said it. And if we move our throttle down, all the way down and to the right, we just armed it, and you'll see here that it's armed. And the motors are turning. And we're going to check that in just a minute, the rotation. So let's go throttle all the way down and to the left. And you see it says safe, it's disarmed. Okay, so next we're going to extend the motor arms out, and we'll check rotation. We'll go through all that. We'll reinstall the plate, screw it back down, and then we're going to go flying. Okay, we have everything put back together. The only thing, in a second, we'll go ahead and put some double-sided tape here to hold the flight controller down. But I checked the rotation on the motors, and all I did was plug it in, turn on the transmitter, plug it in, plug the battery in, and use my throttle, and we do throttle all the way down and to the right, and it will arm it. We'll do that in just a second. And give it a little bit of throttle, and I found this was turning clockwise, and that's correct. This one is supposed to go counterclockwise. It was wrong. This one, motor number 3, is supposed to turn clockwise. It was correct. Number 4 was incorrect. So clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. When you put on your props, this is the rotation of the prop, and we have some videos out on that if you don't have a problem with that. Clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. So we're good to go there. I put the arms at 15 degrees on all of them. You can run either at 90 straight this way, or at 15, or even 45 if you want to, or 30 or 45. But I find that 15 is a real good position on the arms, and it seems to fly really, really well there. But you can experiment with that if you want to. But again, 15 degrees on all of those, on all the arms. Clockwise, counter, clock, counter. To change the rotation on the motor, I'm sure you're aware, but just to go over it, just switch any 2 of the 3 wires. Just change any 2 and it'll reverse it. And I did that on motor number 2 and motor number 4. In a little while, we'll go over the transmitter real quick and show you how I set it up. Again, we have videos out on that already, but we'll go over that in a little bit. Other than that, I think we're in good shape. You can go ahead and position or place your transmitter or your antennas on your receiver, and I'll let you do that. Just, of course, make sure they're out of the way of the prop. I would definitely do it in a 90 degree like that if you can, and it really does a real good job that way. So I'm thinking that's everything. The build looks really good. Good job on that. we'll go over the camera. This is the gimbal you have, the servo gimbal you have. And you had it wired up already and it was inaccurate. Anyway, what we can do is just, we'll wire this in a minute and then I'll take it off and you can put it back on. But it's just going to go into number 5 and number 6 on your receiver. That's all you'll have to do. And we'll set up in the transmitter. I'll show you in a minute how I set that up so you can use the knob on it to adjust your camera. So let's real quick, I'm going to take these props off and let's check fail-safe real quick. Really, really, really important. You don't want to fly unless fail-safe actually works. Let's go ahead and turn your transmitter on. And we'll plug it in. Let's go ahead and arm it. And again, to arm it, and you'll see here, it says safe. And when you go this way, you'll see it says armed. Let's give it some throttle. And let's turn the transmitter off. You'll see there it's not going off. So if your fail-safe is not set, this will fly until you run out of power. You don't want that. We'll set fail-safe up now. So let's go ahead and unplug it. And we'll go through the rest of the settings here. But to go into fail-safe, let's go into here. Let's go into receiver setup. And let's go to fail-safe. Let's go to channel number 3. And let's put this all the way down. And all the way down, and we'll turn it on. That means we're showing no throttle. And let's save that. And you'll see the setting here, channel number 3, minus 100. Now what that does is that if you go into fail-safe, it's just going to chop the power, it's going to fall, and it's going to crash, but that's what you want. You don't want it to continue flying, just like I was showing you earlier. So let's try it again here. Okay. So let's plug it in. And let's arm it, and it says armed. Let's give it some power. Then let's turn the transmitter off. And there you go. Fail-safe kicked in, killed the power, it crashed, but you didn't fly on. So that works. Let's go ahead and turn the power back on. And arm it again. Let's go flying. Let's turn it off. And it's working great. Fail-safe is working. And let's go ahead and disarm it. And it'll go to safe. Now let's go ahead and arm it. And let's let it sit for a little while. It'll disarm itself if you don't do anything with it for a while, but I would always recommend to disarm it when you're not flying with it. Just go ahead and do the throttle to the left, all the way to the bottom and to the left to disarm it instead of just letting it go off on its own. It just went off on its own. So it's a little safety device, but it takes a while, and it's better to go ahead and disarm it and arm it here. But if you don't, if you forget about it, it will definitely disarm. And if you're also at an angle, a steep angle, it won't arm. So you want to make sure you're flat on a relatively flat surface like this. If ever it won't arm, and that's one thing to check, is make sure it's fairly flat if it's not wanting to arm. Now we'll go back into the transmit here in a few minutes, and we'll go through a real simple setup that I did. Again, if you want to connect your gimbal, you'll hook 1 to 5 and 1 to 6. Or we'll hook up to channel 5 and to channel 6. When you move these knobs the way we're going to have it set up, it'll actually move them. Now if you want this to move it one way and this one to move the other, then just switch around these two wires. Switch channel 5 and 6. And that ought to get you done. So let me go ahead and get out of this and we'll get this set up and we'll see in a little bit. Okay, we've already put the name in Skimmer, but of course you can change it. And let's go ahead and go in, and this is where you would select the model if you had multiple models. You know, that's the one we put in. And of course you can go all the way up to 20. So we have this one. This is where you would put the name in, and it's real simple to do. So after you pick the letter, and that's where you would do that, then you would move to the next one, okay? And then when you're done there, and then when you're done there, just hold this one there. So to enter it in, you're going to have to hold this and press it down for a little while. Hold it down. If you're just backing out, you just hit it briefly. So, you know, you can go to your manual and check that out. And the first one I put in, you know, I would go ahead and hold this down to save it. Then I would go back in and see if it took it. Easy way. So you'll make sure, then you'd know you're pressing this long enough, you know, to enter it, to save it rather. So we'll do it. And you could, you know, select a type, and here we're going to use a plane when we do that. And you can go through all of that, but obviously we would pick plane. And if you wanted to copy a model, reset it, our receiver set up, and we're good there. That's the one we want. Now if you go down, and we were talking about fail-safe, and there's the fail-safe. And if you notice, you go down to channel 3, which is your throttle, and if you select it, you can, that's turning it off, and that's where it would come automatically, or that would be the default. So you want to set your throttle all the way down. So when you go into fail-safe, like we were talking about before, you just want to kill the quad, just stop the props. It'll crash, but it'll, you know, like we were saying before, the alternative is for it to keep flying and to hit someone or, you know, hit something. And then, of course, you'll have to turn it on, hold this down, and there you go. You'll see it there. Channel 3, negative 100%. Okay, now what we'll do, let's back out and let's just double check it like I was saying a while ago. And of course, we saw earlier that we actually tested it with the quad by, you know, plugging in the battery, arming it, you know, getting the props going, turn the transmitter off, and just double check the fail-safe to make sure it did go off. Let's go back in, and it held it. Channel 3, which is your throttle, and it's at negative 100. Press this sharp to back out. The rest of this will really, you can go through the manual. This thing does a lot. There's a lot of options, and you can go through the manual for that. But that's all we're doing here. And I think that's it there. So let's back out again and go over, and we get back into it. This is where when we were, or earlier, when we were reversing 2 channels, this is where you go, reverse. And you can see here on channel 2 and channel 4, we reversed it. Super easy to do, just move over. And there it is, that's the normal. That's when we reversed it. And again, hold onto there and you'll see that it saves it. Go back, double check, reversed on 2 and 4. Okay. And that's when we were going through the controller, we did that. We did that a little bit earlier. Let's back out. Endpoints we're not going to mess with. The display, you can go there and you'll see everything there. Now while we are in there, you'll see when we turn the knobs, it's reacting. Okay. Now this is where in auxiliary channels, this is where we set up channel 5 and 6. And if you remember, we were talking about hooking up your gimbal. And we're going to tie those into channel 5 and 6 on the receiver, like I was mentioning earlier. And to set the knob for that, let's just these sources, none. And then these are your knobs. And then that's your other one. And then now these are switches A, B, C, and D. So you can set it to anything you want. So if you wanted channel 5 and 6 to be operated by a switch, you can. But with using the knobs, you know, you can set it at any position you want. So let's, and that's A. And for channel 6, we picked B. So that's all you have to do. Pretty easy. Okay. So that's 5 and 6 on this knob and that knob. And let's just back out. Let's go back in and just double check. A and B, 5 and 6. Sub trims we're not going to mess with. That's your dual rates, and of course if you were in a plane or you know setting up a plane, all this is in there and it's pretty cool. And that's about it. Let's see if I'm forgetting anything. Nope, not really. So we put the name in, we set the fail safe. Make sure on that, you want to make sure, like we went through earlier, make sure that is working. We set the auxiliary channels. Okay. And then here, like I said, is where we set up the name. And we set up the failsafe. Okay, so name failsafe here, and if you know we reversed the channels there, and auxiliary channels, set them up for your gimbal. And that's it. I think we're in pretty good shape. So you can go in, like I was saying, and change the skimmer, the name, and you're in good shape. That's it. If you have any other questions, you know, of course, just get with me. Everything else looks really, really good. This is Daniel with QuadLugs. See you later.